Hey YouTube, how's it going? It's Cad. You guys like my last video a lot. This one's going to be pretty good as well. We are reacting to a stand-up bit that was pretty rough from Kill Tony. I feel like there's a lot of learning lessons and a very common rookie mistake that we see in stand-up. And I want to talk about it because it really is encapsulated in this one Kill Tony bit. We're going to react to the full bit because it's a minute long. The clip I got came from Podcast Clips Unlimited. Sorry, I'll put the link to the video in the description. And the show that it was clipped from was Kill Tony. So I guess shout out to Kill Tony. Let's make some concessions though before we get into the full breakdown. Look, I'm moving. Yay. All right. So concession number one that we really need to point out here is that Kill Tony is rough. Okay. Kill Tony sucks for stand-up noobs, for beginners and stuff like that. And the reason that it sucks is because unlike your usual open mics, which will give you anywhere from 3 to 5 minutes, Kill Tony, you have 1 minute to be funny. And even pro comedians cannot necessarily be funny in a minute. There are some that can do it, but there are some professionals who have specials who even say it's hard. Like, just watch Shane Gillis talk about how Kill Tony is designed for people to fail. I don't think Joe Rogan could be funny in a minute. Peyton Ruddy had a fantastic performance. If you guys want to see a good example of a good minute on Kill Tony, but generally speaking, you got to be rapid fire. You got to be extremely tight in 1 minute, which you already have to be tight for 5 minutes. And some of those jokes aren't going to hit. So imagine you got to take your best jokes, what you think is going to work in the Austin crowd, and condense it into 1 minute. You're only looking at about, let's see, an average pace joke is what, 20 seconds? And that's not even including premise. Like, you can't just bounce back and forth. You have 20 seconds to perform each joke cutthroat with laughter. And you're going to get interrupted because if there is laughter, now all of a sudden, and these people are harsh when it comes to the alarms too, you're looking at maybe 2 to 3 jokes, and 3 if you're lucky, right? So you have to make sure those 2 to 3 jokes are bitching. And then, of course, you have to endure the torture after. We're not going to react to that. We're just going to react to this tight minute because when I watched it, I thought, my God, there's a lot of stuff that is wrong here that, you'll see sometimes at open mics because I've seen them in my time. And I haven't been doing this too long. I've been doing it for a couple of years now, but I've been inconsistent with how often I perform. Now, I can't go on Kill Tony and kill it. I'm going to keep it real. If I go on Kill Tony, I'm going to bomb. I'm going to be terrible. But for the sake of today's video, let's pretend like I know a thing or two. You know what they say, coaches don't play. And I can break this down a little bit. I can tell you guys what's wrong with everything, but we're only going to do this guy's bit on Kill Tony number 618, Trevor Wallace and Brian Simpson. Once again, shout out to Podcast Clips Unlimited, link to the video in the description. And shout out to Kill Tony, the show, for this. And let's get into it.
You ugly people.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Oh, thank you. You ugly people.
All right. So right away, this guy's shitting on the crowd. All right. Now, here's the thing. The name of the game is you got to win the crowd. And you got to win the crowd because they're rooting for you. They're what really determines success and failure here, right? Is, are you going to get laughs? Tony mentions this, by the way, eventually, but you don't want to shit on the audience because now their first impression of you isn't, oh my God, this guy's funny. It's, this guy's an asshole. Especially since it's Kill Tony, I believe they draw from a hat. So a lot of these people want to get up and perform, but they only have so many slots, so they have to draw from a hat. So this guy stole your slot, and now he's calling all of you ugly. So that already makes you look like an asshole. And this is the thing, too, is that first impressions really matter. That's why a lot of comics you'll see talk about, what you look like on stage, how you dress, because it leads a first impression. When I go on stage, people don't look at me and go, oh my God, this is Cad. This is a YouTuber, whatever, some guy who, plays Deadlock all day in his mom's basement. They look at me and they think, oh, this guy's a white frat kid whose parents are rich and spoil him, right? That's what you see when you look at me. First impressions, right? Right away, first thing you do is you say, thank you guys. You guys all are ugly. Now you're in an uphill battle with the crowd, all right? Don't do this. If you want to engage with the crowd at the start, it's okay to do that. I always like to say, I always like to test the waters. I like to ask how the crowd's doing. Sometimes it's overdone, doesn't hurt because it'll tell you what the mood is like and then what kind of battle you're facing from there. You know, if you want to introduce yourself to the crowd, that's what I do. You don't have to do that. You can call everyone amazing. You can say everyone's looking fly tonight. That's how you work with the crowd when you start it up. Butter them up a little bit, you know? So, lesson one, butter the crowd, right? Butter. All right, we're going to move on. I'm getting overly technical on the first bit, but there's only a minute I can work with here. So, bear that in mind with me.
Thank you for coming out. I appreciate that.
So, right away, he flips on himself. I think he realized that shitting on people and calling them ugly is not good. And then obviously he's going to be using the mic stand. He's going to hold on to that. We're going to see that, and it's going to wreak nervousness, right? But yeah, you don't have to say you ugly people. He was trying to get a shock, and the shock didn't work. We're going to talk about shock in a minute, but don't shit on the crowd.
I know what you're thinking. Why is my GTA drug dealer on stage right now? Ooh,
Okay, a couple laughs, but looks like there was a cough or whatever. He mentions it here. Wait.
that cough was rough. A little bit.
All right. We are in bomb territory. Even if he tells the greatest jokes ever, this guy now has made himself appear like an ass. And this is what I mean when you don't want to make yourself look like an ass right away. And I'm sure this guy's a lot better than I am. He has the balls to go and kill Tony, and I don't. He's facing away from the crowd. You want to not do that. You want to face the crowd, face the music, talk to the music, and see if you can dig yourself out of this hole. Already we are what? Video started. We're 20 seconds in, and his only joke was the self-hating GTA drug dealer, which, by the way, anyone who plays GTA knows that there are no drug dealers necessarily. You are the drug dealer. You don't buy drugs off other people. This isn't Schedule 1 or whatever. Even in Schedule 1, you buy drugs off of other people, and you still got to make the drugs and sell them to others. But yeah, GTA is not a game where you buy drugs, especially if you're playing online. Maybe there is in story mode. I wouldn't know. Tell me in the comments, but come on, man. Know your GTA stuff. I have like 2,000 hours on it and no bitches. I know my shit. This is rough.
Plane crashes are rough, right? Can we agree that they're bad? But I actually think they're the perfect opportunity to get something off your bucket list.
All right.
Because in that 1 minute,
Little chuckles there. I don't know if you guys heard it. I did. Power of the IEMs, baby. Get yourself in a pair of IEMs if you don't have them. I already kind of told the joke there. Plane crashes are the only time that you can get something off. Doing the right is depending on crowd reaction. You don't want to do that. You don't want to depend on crowd reaction because you never know how crowd reaction is going to go. In stand-up, you want to avoid these things called uncertainties. We're just going to call them UNCs. Stands for uncertainties. Because with UNCs, everything depends on a reaction. I'll give you guys an example because I've made this mistake before in my time performing stand-up. On my YouTube channel, you guys know that there's a joke I have about my dad's asshole cancer. Here's the thing. When I performed it the first time I did it was at an improv, and it went really well. The audience reacted how I wanted them to react. It was, my dad has cancer. I feel for him because he has cancer. And the audience, they were like, oh. There was a visible, oh. And then I went, in his asshole. And then people started chuckling, and I was like, you monsters. When I performed and what's on my YouTube channel right now, that joke didn't land. I made a comment about cancer, and then I went, oh, so none of you guys are, and then that sort of is what made it funny, was I broke the tension there, and we worked from there. But I made the mistake of relying on the crowd to make a certain reaction in order for that joke to work out. So that's called dealing with unks. And you want to minimize unks. Obviously, you got to have some variance of unks, right? And the unks are bouncing off of things. So if I ask the crowd something, that's an uncertainty because I don't know what the hell's going to happen. That's why you're never going to hear somebody say, hey, scream out a name for me, right? Unless you have a pre-written package or something like that. Usually people who do crowd work are really good at this. When you're doing Kill Tony and it's a minute long, you want to minimize the amount of unks, especially since, usually you're going to have 3 to 5 minutes of material at least on your repertoire prior to performing. Get your tightest minute that doesn't rely on audience reaction. And yeah, so we just could have skipped the whole sentence here. This is not concise at all, which we're going to talk about.
Minute before touchdown, you get away with anything. You are a video game character.
Did he say the same thing twice? Let me double check.
Perfect opportunity. A little bit.
So
Plane crashes are rough.
was that
We
32
agree that
seconds?
they're bad, but I actually think they're the perfect opportunity to get something off your bucket list. Because in that 1 minute before touchdown, you get away with anything. You are a video game character.
So that was 16 seconds of explanation of basically the same concept here, right? But we'll continue.
You know what I do in that opportunity? When Abuelita and Nana, they're praying for salvation, for a miracle, I'm going to get out of my seat and I'm going to punch a kid right there. I've always wanted to be in a fight. I'm always going to win.
Okay, so that is 30 seconds right there that we just had. And remember, we have a minute. That shit did not land. I don't know if you could tell by the crowd reaction. That shit did not land. Why did it not land? Well, we could talk about a lot of varying factors here as far as the Austin comedy crowd, especially when people who perform at the Comedy Mothership. We're going to talk about the concept of punching down in another video, but in today's video, what I want to say is you've already made yourself look like an ass by being an ass to the audience immediately by calling everyone ugly. The worst thing you can do at this point is now make a joke about how you want to punch kids, especially since you just also dogged on people who are praying before a plane crash. So this guy has essentially made himself appear like an ass. I don't know the guy. You know, for all I know, this guy's fucking hilarious. But it's not, that doesn't matter because when we zoom in, how many people will actually know this guy personally? Nobody, right? The majority of the crowd doesn't know who this guy is until he steps on stage and starts performing. This is what I mean is that building audience rapport is very important when it comes to performing stand-up. And this guy clearly bonked it. Fret not. I mean, this is rough. And you could tell that he's gonna fuck it up. But we got some redeeming qualities here that we're going to see in just a second.
Having y'all, hey, our parents beat us. I want to know what that feels like. Right? Oh my God. I didn't think I'd get this far, y'all.
Okay. The parents beating us, a little edgy, and we're going to talk about edginess. But look at this. There's
honestly, I thought
that got some laughs. This gets some laughs here. We actually have a positive here that we can learn from today. And this is breaking the tension. Obviously, there's a lot of tension because, like I said, audiences typically root for the comic on stage. They want them to succeed. Contrary to popular belief, people don't pay tickets to go to a performance and watch people bomb. Even though Kill Tony centers its entire thing around the idea of new comics coming in and bombing so that these comics on stage, who are all sitting at these panels, who make it look so easy, now just shit on a guy who performed for a minute, you know, which sucks. People who generally pay tickets to go see this aren't like, man, I want to go see somebody bomb. In the back of their minds, they're like, I really want this guy to succeed because if that was me, I'd want the audience to feel for me. The audience roots for you, believe it or not. So don't worry whenever you're performing on stage. The audience is rooting for you. Just don't call them ugly.
I was going to black out on stage and pass out right now.
Okay, so that was one of the roughest minutes of comedy that I'll ever put you guys through in the Kedisir audience. I have some notes here that I have pre-written prior to recording this video. So I'm going to talk about some of the things I missed here. First and foremost, some concessions, you know, things that we got to feel for this guy on. All right. So number one, this guy is on Kill Tony. Kill Tony is the hardest show to perform on as far as the humor is considered. Damn, that is a rough looking one. Kill Tony is next to impossible to be funny on because you have a minute. It is so fucking hard to be funny in a minute. It is so hard to build the rapport, be funny, and kick ass in a minute. So, but Kill Tony advertises itself like it's any novice can come in here and do it. No, you cannot. Believe it or not, 1 minute is significantly harder than 5 minutes. Even though it doesn't seem like it, right? Because, oh, well, a tight 10 is hard. But there is a point of diminishing returns. If I was to pirate software and draw a little thing here, right? Let's go 0 minutes to like 10 minutes. And we're just going to call this like, oh, shit, I realize I'm too big. So let me shrink myself. So we got 0 minutes and we got 10 minutes here, right? As far as difficulty it is to be funny, it's going to look something like this, right? It's going to look like a parabola. Well, not really. It's more like linear. So it'll be like a steady decrease down and then a steady increase up. And I'll say this equilibrium point is around 3 minutes. If you're doing anything shorter than 3 minutes, you have to do a lot in 3 minutes. And Kill Tony is somewhere around here, where it's almost as hard, if not harder, to do 1 minute than it is to do 10. It's a weird philosophy, but generally speaking, trust me on this one. If you're going to perform stand up and you're a novice, even if you are a pro, stick to 3 to 5, unless you have more material and you want to test out more material. Any more, it's brutal. Any less, it's brutal. Right? So that's the first and foremost thing. The second concession and the second thing we're going to feel for this guy on is that he's performing at a place called the Comedy Mothership. This is Joe Rogan's club. Joe Rogan's club is like a weird void. It's a weird pocket dimension of comedy as opposed to other clubs that you're going to see throughout the world, really. Joe Rogan and the Comedy Mothership style of humor is vastly different than other clubs in the sense that there is a rule, and I'm going to talk about it, about punching down, that still applies at the Comedy Mothership, but not in the way you might think. Anyone who's at the Comedy Mothership will tell you, for one, they have to like Ziploc your phones, which is weird. They also take pictures of you before you enter the club, which is some next level 1984 shit. But then on top of that, a lot of the comics that perform on here are much more edgy. Which leads me to my next point. Edgy is not funny. This guy tried several times to be funny on the premise of being edgy. For instance, he said, he called the audience ugly. Oh my God, this guy is insane. This guy's bananas. He called the audience ugly. He made jokes about airplane crashes. He said his parents beat him like the rest of us do. He wants to punch a kid. Look, this sort of stuff is rough. It's stuff that it's not just easy to go on there and shout slurs and call yourself a knight, which people do that on Kill Tony, by the way. There are people that'll go up there, rip an N-bomb, rip an F-bomb, and call it a night. And apparently that's something that happens a lot. F-bomb ripping on stage at the Comedy Mothership. It's a weird club. But edgy is not equal to funny. Funny is equal to funny. Which makes me sound like a loser, right? It's like, oh my God, this guy, N-word funny, right? No, I'm not like that at all. What I am saying is there's a concept in comedy about punching down, right? The concept of punching down is basically where you, as a comic, let's take this guy for example, typically speaking, you don't want to punch in a class below you. For instance, me. If I go on stage, what do you guys think of me as, right? Let me point the camera, let me point this at myself here real quick. When you guys look at me, you think this guy is a white kid, he's a white guy, he's a frat kid, he's spoiled. If I go on stage and I start complaining about racism towards white people and my first world problems, I'm going to look like an ass. If I go on stage and I start ripping on gay people, on women, on minorities, on immigration, I look like a loser. Right? This guy did a little bit of that punching down. Of course, it was for one on the audience. It is not very polite to rip on the audience. But then I'll just put A. And then for two, he ripped on kids. Defenseless kids. There are ways to make punching kids funny, right? I'm not saying that this guy doesn't know it. This guy can't do it. You can't do it. Obviously, you can. Comedy Mothership, you can rip the F-bomb and get a million laughs. It is way harder though when you're cracking jokes to punch down on kids. And like I said earlier, his best joke, I'll say, was at around a minute 4.
What that feels like, right? Oh my God. I didn't think I'd get this far, y'all.
So, once again, the only joke that really I think worked wasn't even that edgy. It was saying, "Oh my God, I can't believe I'm here," and I thought I was gonna pass out and die. And yeah, it's good to see this. The kind of joke where he rips on himself, but in a non-edgy way, in a way that makes you in the audience want to root for him because oh my God, this guy's just a regular dude. He could be just like me. I would pass out on stage. I'm feeling this way. Now he's got, he's rallied behind the audience because he doesn't do the edgy shit. He's not forcing this character of being edgy. And like I said, you can be edgy, but it doesn't mean that you're going to be funny. But yeah, I mean,
Honestly, I thought I was gonna black out on stage and pass out right now.
and even then it was like, okay, you just stated something. The To Kill Tony is a rough audience, generally speaking. But shit, man. And then let's get to the acting real quick. I'm gonna speed this up. We're gonna go as fast as this lets me, and I'm gonna mute, and we're just gonna watch body language here, right? Moving with the hands, that's good. That's good. He doesn't have a script on him. I was shitting on this with the Caligari sisters in the last video. I like this. I like the acting and the fact that he has his 1 minute memorized. Look at this. Look at the passion in the hands and stuff. This is good body language. Actually, believe it or not, this is decent enough acting for most people to get their tight minute across. So if I were to give this guy pros and cons, the first pro I'd give is that, or things I like. First and foremost, this acting's good. He has sort of he's a little nervous, but obviously you would be when you're performing on Kill Tony. He's opening himself up a little bit. He's got the shoulders broad. He's not clasped together. This is not bad. But like I said, the issue here is on material. And so I guess the big takeaway in today's video for my breakdown is edgy is not equal to funny. You can write this equation down if you want. E is not equal to F. Edgy is not equal to funny. The idea of being edgy, of course, is that you're trying to shock your audience. And sometimes it works whenever you shock them. Carlin's a great example of the kind of edgy humor that works. Carlin's also a fucking genius as far as this goes. But you can't just go on there and say something like, yeah, I like the Holocaust and expect people to laugh at it because they're not. Because there's no real joke behind it as well. We're running on 23 minutes. This is a very lengthy breakdown on this. Once again, shout out to Podcast Clips Unlimited and shout out to Kill Tony for, creating this show. If you guys like this content, leave a like, leave a dislike if you dislike it. Tell me if I should do another one of these in the future if you guys got any sets. I thought about doing Kramer. The only problem is with doing Kramer, before anyone comments this shit in the comments below, they censor a lot of swears in the Kramer bomb, like the F bomb and, shit. They don't censor the N word, which he rips quite a lot. So I'm not so sure if I'll react to Kramer bombing, but I might. And I have to find a way to get it censored. But yeah, maybe we'll do a breakdown of like good comedy, sort of good writing. The only caveat is you guys will know good writing when you see it. And I can't just say, hey, okay, this is what he does right, this is what he does wrong. Because very rarely do I want to tell a comic that's working and that it's going well what they're doing wrong. Because if it's going right for them, it's going right for them. And remember, guys, anyone can do stand-up. Don't listen to these gurus that tell you otherwise. That's bullshit. Anyone can be funny, and you guys should give it a shot. It really helps you with creativity, with writing, with stage fright, with a lot of things, and stand-up should be an open and inclusive community where everyone can make it. And with that, I've been Ked. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Please take care. Please eat your Wheaties, and tell your parents you love them. And yeah, get out of here.